We have a motion moved by Councillor Vicente, seconded by Councillor Santos, to approve the agenda. Additional information related to this evening's meeting was distributed at your seats. I will ask the clerk to introduce this additional material.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of staff, and the public attending this evening. Distributed this evening is the presentation by Main Street Research, item 3.1, regarding survey of citizens' attitudes regarding the province of Ontario's upcoming regional municipality review. Also, item 3.2, a presentation from staff regarding an update on the regional government review. In addition, in regard to item 4.1, which is a staff report on the province of Ontario's 2019 regional government review, there is a replacement page 4.1-7. And as well, there are delegations that have requested to speak this evening to council. They will be identified as 3.3-1 from Jermaine Chambers, community member, and 3.3-2, Sylvia Roberts, Brampton resident. And those are the changes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the motion? Motion carries. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? Seeing none, the clerk will so note for the meeting minutes. We have presentation item 3.1 regarding the survey of citizens' attitudes regarding the province of Ontario's upcoming regional municipal review. Joseph Patari, our acting CL, will introduce the presentation before we hear from Main Street Research. And before we introduce Joe for the introduction, I just want to say part of all this effort was to make sure that we did our homework, that we did our due diligence, and whether it's the Deloitte report, the Ernst & Young report, whether it's engaging research over the opinions of our community, or whether it's getting a legal opinion, what we've done as a city is to make sure that we didn't make a decision first and then afterwards do the research. We've done the research, and that's why we're making this decision on the last day available to provide input to the province. So on that note, I'll have our CEO introduce the first information.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the wonderful introductory comments to set the context for a lot of work that's gone into this and a very evidence-based approach that this council endorsed. With us today, I have the pleasure of introducing Joseph Angelano from Main Street Research. We retained Main Street to do some polling for us in relation to this assignment, which looked at both some attitudes and opinions across the region of Peel, as well as Brampton specifically. Some very interesting findings, and with that, I'll hand it over to Joseph to present their findings.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of council, for having me over to discuss the findings that we found with our two surveys. So we've done two surveys here, one of which only looked at Brampton, the other looked at Peel region broadly. We used different modes in both cases. So the first survey was conducted between April 26th and May the 1st. We used IVR for this, interactive voice recording, and this was conducted on a sample of 2018 adults on both landlines and cellular phones living in Peel region. And the second was conducted between April 26th and May the 4th using live call agents, and we sampled 1,500 people, adults aged 18 and over, and living only in Brampton. In both cases, respondents were given the opportunity to take a survey in English, Mandarin, Cantonese, and Punjabi, whatever language that they felt more comfortable taking the survey in. And in the first instance, the first poll has a margin of error of 2.18, 19 times out of 20, and the second poll has a margin of error of plus or minus 2.53 at 19 at the 95% confidence level. Again, 19 times out of 20. Just good housekeeping stuff for polling that we got to mention, or else we're just not doing our job. So we'll head right into it. So at the bottom of each poll, at each slide, you're going to see what. So this is presenting both findings, both polls, and we're just putting together the highlights, which are more germane to the discussion at hand. So this came from the poll across Peel region, but this is just a subset of those who are living in Brampton. The question asked, the provincial government will conduct a review of the 9 regional municipalities in Ontario and the 82 individual towns that they comprise. Were you aware of this review? And awareness is split right down the middle. I would say that's an even split, 50-50. Slightly more people say no, but I would say awareness for something like this, it is a municipal level. Sometimes it's not always the hot, sexiest federal, provincial issue that's going on. I would say awareness for this is actually very, very high. Another question, again, from Peel Region. Here we're going to show you the insights across Peel Region and the 3 municipalities. So the question is, the review will look at governance, decision-making, service delivery. In terms of governance, which of the following options do you think will be the best for regional municipality appeal? So a near majority across Peel Region, let's round it up, let's call it 50%, do not want to change the current governance structure. Support for leaving the governance structure intact is strongest in Brampton and also extremely strong in Caledon. It's pretty rare for us to see support levels that high. I think that shows a very strong level of support and strong, I wouldn't say consensus, but nonetheless, there's a strong preference. I think that's what I'm going for, to leave the current governance structure intact. There is significant support for centralizing all governance at regional level, but it's nowhere near that of the status quo. The one difference, of course, is Mississauga, which should stick out as a sore thumb there on the visualization there. Nearly 50% of respondents in Mississauga want to de-amalgamate the region, but the second most preferred option, it's still significant support there. Nearly a third of those surveyed in Mississauga said to leave the structure intact. And again, this came from our Peel Region poll. Okay, so we also asked, again, from the Peel Region poll, is your local city council too small to do its job effectively, too large to do its job effectively, or the right size? Most respondents said, again, 60%, well over 50% said that council's the right size, right? You're in the Goldilocks zone, right? They're generally happy. A quarter of people do think that council is too large. Very few people think that there's 14%, just over 40% say that it's too small, but citizens are happy with the size of council as it is. Fast forward to we asked the same question again across all residents. Is Peel Regional Municipality Council too small or too large or the right size to do its job effectively? A majority of people also say that it is the right size, less than that of city council, but nonetheless it's a majority, right? 51.3 think that the size of government is adequate to do its job, right? This reinforces the fact, I think, the finding that people are satisfied with the status quo. They're not saying the council is too big. They're not saying it's too large. It is the right size to fulfill the job that's being asked to do. Yeah, more people think that nearly 10% more people think that city council is the right size than Peel Regional Council. But again, I would say, nonetheless, you're still over 50%. That is a majority, right? I mean, that shows that there is significant support. So in Brampton, so this came from the Brampton poll, when we only conducted in Brampton. In Brampton, the regional municipality appeal provides some services, and the city of Brampton provides others. Which level of government should be providing the following services? Across the board, among different services that we asked, a majority of people think that it should be Peel Region who should be conducting these services, except for policing. A majority of Brampton residents say that policing should be in the hands of City Council. That said, it's not insignificant the amount of people who say across the board that services should be run by the city itself. Lower in some instances, you can see recycling, emergency medical services. Transit even lower, which is, I mean, that's certainly not the status quo, but this does, I mean, I think this is the kind of the one minor inconsistency that we do find. Even though people are happy with the governance structure, the city services is a little bit different, right? And then we get these findings, which I think the most fascinating for myself. So we asked citizens' observations versus expectations in terms of citizens' delivery. So we asked for transit bus arrival time, how many times is solid waste collected, how many times a month is recycling collected, and how quickly does it take for an ambulance to arrive? How fast or how often do you perceive it to happen, and what's the expectation? And we just try to see what's going, try to compare the two, right? So Brampton transit bus arrival time, people think that it takes on average 13.1 minutes for a bus to arrive. That finding makes a lot of sense because, again, we asked Bramptonians living all across the city what bus route they use. Some might take a lot less time, some will take more time. You do the average, that actually makes a lot of sense. A lot of people in our live agent calls said, well, depends on where I am, right? And they gave an absolutely reasonable answer. So we took an average of that. So, just a little digging around research and comparing some bus arrival times and some routes. This finding makes actually a lot of sense. It does mirror reality. However, no surprise, a bus can never arrive as fast as you want. Even if it takes 8 minutes to arrive, they're going to want it to arrive in 2 minutes. But people think on average that it should take 8.4 minutes. Let's call it 8 minutes to arrive. A 5-minute gap, I think that's a very solid. I think that's a very reasonable gap between observation and expectation. The one interesting one that I found here is how many times is solid waste collected a month. People say on average 3.6, so they say it should be 4. If you're exceeding expectations there, how many times, and this doesn't concord with actual reality. How many times a month is recycling collected? They say they report 5.4 times, when in fact it's twice. And I think there's some observation error going on, obviously, but I'll explain why I think it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, every week someone is coming to your house collecting some sort of refuse, right? So since we flipped around every respondent got the order of these questions randomized, right? They never got the same order, right? It was, sometimes they would ask the ambulance first or whatever. So I think that's what they're reporting is, okay, well, someone is coming to pick up something. And I guess it happens more often than I think. So that's why, I think that's why you're seeing this observation error on the part of respondents. But nonetheless, again, they think it should be 4.2 times a month, which is, there's a drop there, but nonetheless, it's only twice, I believe. But again, it's relatively close. Realistically, is that even remotely feasible to achieve? The one absolutely stellar bit of news I think here is the perfect mirroring between how many observed arrival time for ambulances and how quick people think it should be. On average, people think it takes 9.8 minutes for an ambulance to arrive, and they think it should take 9.9. So you can't literally you could get better, but people are completely. Their expectations are matching what they're observing. So I think that's a relatively good sign. So opinions on whether Brampton is having its own police forces or health services would improve perceived public safety issues. Despite the fact that we just saw earlier that a majority of Brampton residents want to see Brampton have its own police force, they don't think that it will have an effect, or a majority of, or more Bramptonians do not think that'll have it will help in improving safety or reducing any perceived drug problems that Brampton is currently facing, right? So that then leads the question of trying to understand why do they want to see Brampton have its own police force? These are not the reasons why. The only demographic where a majority actually think that a unique Brampton police force would make the city safer are respondents between ages of 50 and 64, and as I said, it's similar findings across with the drug issue. Okay, and the final slide here, would you support a merger of Peel Region into a larger city of Peel or a mega city of Peel? It's a long time that the word mega city could have been used in a realistic political context. I was in university when that happened to Toronto. Nearly 47% of respondents do not want to see Brampton merge into a larger city of Peel. There is significant support, but nonetheless, more residents do not want to see this happen than those who would want to see it. This is true across all age groups, both except those aged between 50 and 64. It is true across all genders. It is also true across all income levels, except those who earn less than $50,000. So those with a higher income level do not want to, or definitely do not want to see a merger into a larger city. And with that, I conclude. That's our fun little logo, and thank you for the time.
On that note, are there any questions for Joseph? Councillor Vicente and then Councillor Palishi.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. According to your methodology, these polls were conducted at the end of April and beginning of May.
Okay. Yes.
I think before that, the city of Mississauga had issued a piece of mail, a card or a piece of literature encouraging every single resident in the city of Mississauga to fill out the card, send it to the Premier's office, and encourage the province to de-amalgamate the region. Mm-hmm. And with this survey having taken place, even after all of that work mm-hmm. that the city of Mississauga has done, it seems that they have not garnered the necessary support that one would need to justify de-amalgamating. Not even half mm-hmm. of the respondents wanted either option, mm-hmm. and which kind of speaks to the power of keeping the status quo. That being said, in the city of Brampton, we have a very clear majority that has indicated that folks like to see things governed the way they have been. And I think that speaks powerfully to the good work that's done at the region, at the city of Brampton, but also to the level of engagement that this city, through its staff, has taken to reach out to Brampton residents. Now, just as a question, with the Mississauga results showing only 48.3% in favor of de-amalgamating, typically when you do a plebiscite of this nature, you would require 50 plus 1% to move ahead and take an action based on that question. Wouldn't that be correct?
I'd even go so far to submit that on a major governance issue, you likely would need a larger majority. There's such a thing called the Clarity Act that exists in this country. And to quote a former prime minister, you don't allow the country to break up because someone forgot their glasses at home. This is a serious, Toronto has gone through this issue of de-amalgamating, merging into a larger city. And you can ask many city councillors and many people who are far more knowledgeable about city governance and deliverance of city services in Toronto about how well that has gone, and the overwhelming consensus has gone rather poorly. So I think a major governance decision, which would affect, if I get my numbers wrong, I want to say 750,000 people that live in Peel Region. Have that right?
No, 1.4.
1.4, even better. Even more makes my point stronger. 1.4 million people to making significant changes to the governance structure that affects 1.4 million people. Would likely. I think the province would be well advised to seek a very, very clear consensus beyond 50% plus one to make that sort of change, which clearly the citizens in this Peel region do not. It wouldn't get anyways, but nonetheless. That's what I would say.
Thank you. And given the accuracy of your poll, given the numbers that you called, number of people you called, mm-hmm. and the type of questions that you asked, mm-hmm. That this council has here what you would call 2/3 result in favor of keeping things as they are. I think that speaks powerfully. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming and delegating here today, providing us with this information. Along the lines of Councillor Vincente's question with regards to Mississauga, and can you explain to me why their numbers, 48.3% for deamalgamate, are so high? Is that due to Mississauga's stance and their strong media presence for breaking up the region?
Almost certainly. Almost certainly. There's no question that the leadership, the elected leadership in Mississauga has been the loudest and proudest for deamalgamating the region. The media attention that campaign has gotten has been significant. It has gotten some support among some folks among municipal punditry. So that would explain that, right? It is significant. I mean, nonetheless, Mississauga is sticking out there like a sore thumb. But ultimately, we have to look at this is a decision that's going to affect the entirety of Peel region. And if this were held to a vote, and we were even looking at a super majority, if this were held to a vote, this would not pass, simply put, right? I mean, for all those, if it were just the option between deamalgamation and leaving the structure as it is, that nearly 21%, where would they go, right? They're going to have to make a choice, and their choice is not going to be on the ballot, right? They may that near majority, that near 50% you see would likely cross more, over 50%. So this, we took a very, very large sample. The sample is even large. I would say large enough to be solidly representative of both Brampton and Mississauga. Caledon's a little bit different because it's a lot smaller. Yep. But nonetheless, I think this, if we were to repeat this with some other method, I don't foresee the findings to be any different. I think it's clear as day as what to show that it's clear as day what these numbers are showing.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel you're the professional? Do you feel that this survey was? Do you think that this was a strong survey in terms of the number of surveys that you guys have done before? Do you think this was a popular survey? Was it well received?
As usual, we always have, by regulation CRTC, we have to disclose who's conducting the poll, and we have to provide a way by which they can contact us. Why we are asked to do this is because if someone doesn't want to be called anymore, they got to give us a call and say, stop calling us, right? Mm-hmm. That, we will always get people who just do not want to be called for anything, right? Yeah. It was no higher or lower than your typical poll. Having said that, we are members of the World Association of Public Opinion Research. There are standards by which we must abide by, one of which is ensure that the questions are as neutral as possible. We are not, so as not to lead the respondent. I don't think these questions are leading the respondent in any way. We did get a large enough sample. It took a while to get that. Contact rates for surveys these days are just decreasing. That's just the nature of the beast these days. But we didn't get many complaints, and I think because of the very neutral tone in which we took the questions, I think that no one can accuse any of us of pushing the respondent to go a certain way. The question that was asked is on the screen right there, right?
And I do like I like the neutrality of the questions, and I've taken part in a few surveys where I knew exactly where they were going and right. where they were trying to either mislead or lead. But that being said, how is it, and how can we find out with the numbers of people that participated and actually gave an answer, you know, I talked to a lot of residents about trying to get them to understand the difference between the region appeal and the local municipality. And a lot of people, for the ones that want to know, fully don't understand.
Right.
It's extremely complicated.
Sure.
In when you're dealing with people in their day-to-day lives. So how do you feel from the people that took part in the survey? Do you feel like they understood? Do you have any pre-questions, or with your live agents, did they get a feeling or a sense that people were well-versed in the different local municipalities?
I mean, the results kind of show somewhat, sort of, right? I mean, I go back to that question. I mean, clearly there's some observation error on the part of the respondents, right? The times a month that recycling is collected that they're telling me isn't right. But that said, I mean, I was pleasantly encouraged with that finding. I mean, I will ask awareness for other things that are going on in the province. Like, are you aware of the changes in the autism program made by the province of Ontario? It's slightly higher. It's about 55%. Mm-hmm. So this made the news, right? I mean, what the Mississauga elected leadership did with that, with this issue is they did bring awareness to this. There's no question about it. Yeah. Problem is, it likely backfired in the other two municipalities, right? If you're all in favor of Mississauga, I'm sure people in this city looked and said, okay, how does this benefit Brampton? And if there's no voice speaking in favor of the amalgamation, people are not going to, in fact, what the officers are saying, that there is no benefit, then that's how they're going to see this, right? So it kind of, in that sense, kind of backfired in the other two municipalities. I think that's what we're seeing. I think people are well versed. The fact that awareness is that high and they have definite opinions on this. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we ran the same question in the live agent calls in just Peel Region. We also threw in we also gave people the option to say, look, have you even heard of this? No. Yes or no. The undecided rate in Brampton was something around like 11%. Put that in context. When we do electoral polling, we just wrapped up a poll. We just wrapped up an election in Newfoundland. We polled 2 days before. The undecided rate there was 14%. Right? Undecided rate here on this issue was 14%. That's all then. Okay. So that's pretty. There's been some thought put into this, I think, from the part of the citizens.
And in reality, Mississauga's been screaming for separation since the region was actually formed in 74. So that being said, there is one question in there, though, that we around this table and the city of Brampton's been fighting for a long time, and that's our representation at the region appeal. Mm-hmm. And we've always felt, and anybody we talk to have always felt that we're under represented at the region, but yet there's a stronger.
Just jump to that slide. There it is.
Is it that one or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Peel Region. Yeah.
And 51.3% of the people think that we have fair representation, that's the one I question.
Well, the context is everything. Much higher right. Mm-hmm. That 9% difference is probably those people who have that opinion, right? Not insignificant, right? I mean, 10% is actually closer to 9. Yeah, it's 9. Excuse me. But that might explain the gap, right? Also, again, how much presence does Peel? I mean, I ask this because I don't know. How much presence does Peel Region Council have in the lives of people here in Brampton compared to your council, right?
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Member speakers on the board, Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, Mayor, for the reminder, and I'll ensure to try to keep it quick through the mayor. Thank you very much for your presentation. One observation, a couple of observations. So when we can do the comparison with Mississauga, so the Mississauga message of, when we get into these terms of decision-making, service delivery, I would suggest that, people on the street or, people day-to-day, a lot of people wouldn't understand what does this entail, what does it mean? When you get to, is this gonna be more expensive, or is this not gonna be more expensive? Is this gonna, is it a pocketbook issue? Ultimately, they wanna know, is it gonna cost me more or not? And when you hear from Mississauga, it hasn't been just now. From previous mayor, it's always been that Mississauga is not getting its fair share at the region. They keep paying into it. It costs the Mississauga taxpayers, bang, bang, bang. So that message has been ingrained for a while. Now, do you not think, at this stage through the mayor, and you talked about a little bit that, Mississauga went forward and they were very effective from a communication perspective. But us now, if we were to go back and do the survey, and I know it's hypothetical, but based on studies that we have now, we actually have figures. To be able to go to a Brampton resident and say, this is gonna cost you more. Services, we get rid of the region, this is what we're, from our studies, do you not think putting that dollar value, making it a sort of a money issue, pocketbook issue, would skew the numbers and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, from a political campaigning perspective, absolutely. I mean, that's a 110% valid thing to do, right? That is a job of that would be the job of a political discourse to say, look, these are the facts, right? This is what we perceive the facts to be. It's going to be more expensive. Factor that in your decision. I can't do that in my line of work, right? If I were to tell people, if I were to ask the question, well, this is going to cost you more money, are you in favor of it? Guess what the answer is going to be?
Yeah. And I guess where we're going with that, and I know we do have a strategy going forward,
Sure.
and that's kind of the sort of impetus where I'm going at, because I'm just thinking, even myself, when you look at it and you try to understand it, it's very complex stuff. We're talking about a lot of information, and so that's one thing. The second thing is the correlation to the popularity of the government of the day. So when we talk about the provincial government, and I know there's been, polls out on how popular the governors are not. So would that skew also the numbers? Tended that people who supported the party in power would tend to sort of say they agree with the government's positioning, or do you think that's not much of a factor?
It's unobserved, so I'm not going to speculate. I didn't ask. I mean, it would have been pertinent to ask provincial voting attention in this poll, right? It would have been super interesting to see, right?
Sure.
I mean, I will say we have polled provincial voting attention. I think the last time we were in the field, we published was from April. I mean, the numbers are there. Look it up. The provincial government's not doing that hot in terms of public opinion, and further polls released today, other companies, other methodologies, all point the same thing. That's what we know. However, the relationship between those numbers, and in particular how popular the government is in Peel Region, which is an unknown, how that pertains to these findings is, to us is unknown, because we would not have asked the question.
And I guess anecdotally, where I'm going through this through the chair, is that, just from social media, for example, if I do a posting that I find, on government cuts or some type of provincial announcement, usually what I tend to find, those who are considered to be of the party that's, the government usually defends the position. And this is just anecdotally. I guess lastly, other polls by other jurisdictions. Do you know, for example, any affected other communities, have they been doing their own polls? Have you done any scan on what's happening, maybe Niagara region or any of that stuff?
No,
Okay.
we have not done any work in any other municipality.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very much, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the numbers. I always love numbers. I've got a question about the split is basic 50-50, those who knew we were doing a governance review or those who didn't.
Yep.
Of those, did we at any point, or did you at any point, separate the responses from those who knew there was a review and those who didn't know there was a review? And did those skew any of the numbers at all?
We did not do that crosstab, but that's easy. That's an easy observation enough to put together. Right?
Okay, because anecdotally, I would just say that, anybody who didn't know that there's a review going on may not know other certain things about the municipalities, may not know about the governance structure.
Sure.
So I would have been interested in seeing
Yeah,
those
sure,
numbers
sure.
put
No,
out.
that's a good idea. Maybe I may go back and produce that
Yeah.
because now I'm interested in that. On that note, I'd say never worry too much about the low information. I shouldn't say never worry, but I mean just accept the reality of the low information voter and just deal with it. The majority of citizens, and this is how democracy works, right? I mean, I'm assuming this will go to a referendum. I could be completely wrong, but I'm going to work on that assumption. This goes to a referendum. I mean, there are going to be lots of people who will not understand the ins and outs of municipal governance. It's a tricky job, but it's going to be their decision, and they're going to make that decision on whatever reason, and some of it may be strictly, maybe I don't want to use the word moral, but ethical reasons. I mean, can we govern ourselves better? Not very technical reasons, or very detailed reasons in terms of policy, right? And that's I mean, if this will go to a referendum, that's how this issue is going to be decided, right? Not on complicated issues. I mean, they are complicated issues and they're fascinating issues, and God bless the people who can understand them, right? That's not me. I'm just a number cruncher, right? But it really comes down to that, right? I mean, my favorite example is the famous pollster Daniel Yankelevich. He found that when he was polling during in 1967, height of Vietnam War, most people couldn't find Vietnam on a map, but they knew it was wrong. They could tell you why it was wrong, right? That's where the public that's the space in which public decision is made, not necessarily on policy issues.
Okay, and I'd also, very quickly, I'd also like to know if there would have been a difference in the responses to each of the questions between the live calls and the robocalls.
When we asked this question in live calls, I think it was 46% within the margin of error, which is fascinating to me as a pollster. We talk about mode effect, though, because there's this theory in which the manner in which you administer the survey makes a difference. Not in these two cases.
Okay,
Right.
did we have many people that answered two questions and then said, that's it, I'm hanging up?
Oh, sure.
Do we know how many that was out of the,
Completion rate was, for those who took the answer, completion rate was around, I want to say 70%, 70 to 80%.
well, that's not too bad, actually.
Off the top of my head, right?
Yeah, it's a good completion
I
rate.
mean, drop-off rates are different, right? So I'm just,
So how many total questions were there?
what, 12, 15, something like that.
12, 15, okay. And finally, were fire services included with emergency services, or did we not ask about fire?
No, we didn't ask fire services.
Okay. I find that interesting, since we have the best fire department in Canada here, so, yeah. I just wondered why we wouldn't have asked about fire services, since we asked about police services being separated as well. Yeah. No problem. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Joseph, for handling all those questions. Seeing no one else on the board, we'll proceed to our next item, item 3.2. We now have a presentation regarding update on regional government review. This time, Joseph Pertari, our acting CEO, and Lowell Rubenvaughn from the Office of the CEO are here to provide council with a presentation as to further context for this evening's meeting. After the presentation and council's questions, we'll bring forward the staff report 4.1 for council's consideration.
So through the mayor to council, thank you very much for this opportunity to provide a summary of the work conducted by staff related to the regional government review. I'll try to be brief, as most of the information has been presented is already in the report. We've already presented this information, but I think that it's important to at least lay out the context in which why we're here and where and what direction the provincial government is going as it relates to the regional government review. In particular, what direction was given to the special advisors. The special advisors, Michael Fenn and Ken Sealing, were provided with the framework of looking at what reforms would you recommend to promote better representation and decision-making? What reforms would you recommend to improve the quality and or to reduce the cost and overlap of lower tier and upper tier municipal services, as well as where do you see your upper and lower tier municipality from 10 years from now. So they're really looking at improving governance, decision-making, and service delivery. Where we are today is, as of 11:59 tonight, the public consultation concludes. The options that we've been looking at over the course of the last several weeks has been whether or not we want to see the current regional government model in Peel, that's a two-tier system, stay in place. Do we want to look at amalgamating, or do we want to look at dissolution where the city of Brampton becomes a standalone city? Again, we spoke about this a number of times at this council, but as endorsed by council, throughout this entire process, we have been looking at this through three key principles. The first is to ensure whatever model or whatever decision the province makes, we want to ensure that there is no reduction in the core services that are currently provided by the region of Peel. We want to ensure that there are no additional financial costs to the taxpayer, as well as we want to ensure fairness to all affected municipalities within the region of Peel. I thought it would be appropriate just to give a very high-level overview of where we are with the Ernst & Young financial analysis. We were hoping at this point in the day that this report would be made public, but working with the region of Peel, the cities of Mississauga, as well as the town of Caledon, we're still waiting for the final public release of this report. While we were hoping that it would be before 11:59, hopefully it'll be slightly before that, fingers crossed. But what we are hoping to do is by tomorrow morning through the government relations update is to provide council with an update on our initial analysis of what their financial implications model found. I did want to take a really slight pause here, and I think I would be really remiss, and while I don't speak on behalf of the acting CAO, is to really extend my appreciation to staff from across the organization who really stepped up from the City of Brampton to make sure that the independent audit that that E&Y is doing on this was done on time. There was a lot, as you can appreciate, there's a lot of financial information from amongst all four municipalities, and I really want to provide my appreciation to staff for putting in a lot of late hours on weekends and during the week as well on that. So hopefully more details to come prior to 11:59 tonight. So what has the city been doing? As the mayor has already said, we have been trying to do our homework. We have been trying to engage the public as much as possible. So I'm going to go really quickly over the next few slides on some of, just to kind of recap some of the activity and the engagement activities that we have done over the course of the last several weeks. First, I wanted to start that what we have done is we did create our own dedicated website, Brampton.ca Regional Government Review. This is where we really try to provide up to date, up to the minute information on the regional government review. We've also provided a lot of updates through social media, in particular Facebook and Twitter. And we really appreciate council's support to continue to get the message out for this important issue out to the various residents and stakeholder groups. We have done, or over the last few weeks, we did conduct a number of public consultations. We did do a telephone town hall on April 27th that was hosted by the mayor. We provided the details of, or a summary of those previously to council. On May the 4th, we did a in-person town hall. We've done an online survey, not scientifically significant as Main Street, but we really wanted to get the pulse check of our residents. And we also provided residents with an opportunity to provide comments through our online form. All the comments, questions, feedback that we've received throughout this entire process in openness and transparency has been provided as appendices to the report today. Through our online poll, and again, this is not necessarily should be considered as a true random sample as what we heard from Main Street, but again, just to really give a flavor on some of the questions that mirror those that we asked during the telephone town hall. So I'll go through this relatively quickly, happy to answer questions, but I think some of it is straightforward, and I also recognize that Councillor Singh had also requested that this information be shared publicly. So in terms of, what governance model would residents support, 59%, 60% supported, no change. So again, that stays to the status quo option. We understand this was raised about in terms of the cost implication. We understand that if there is a change, there could be an associated cost with this. And again, this is what we're fleshing out through the EY financial independent audit. One of the key drivers for the public was the cost. So 45% did find that cost is a driver in terms of being important for whatever decision the province of Ontario decides. Would you support a single-tier City of Brampton? I would say that an overwhelming over 3/4 do not support that option. And then we asked a number of questions as it related to police in terms of what kind of structure would they look like. And again, through the EY financial analysis, they are looking at several options for that model. And the same thing, we understand that the region currently handles water and wastewater. If there is changes, what kind of model would the public support? So again, we really wanted to try to leverage as much information as we can to provide to council to ensure that you can make as much of an informed decision as possible. So what's next? At this point, our anticipation is that a provincial decision on the future of all 9 regional governments in Ontario will be decided sometime in the summer. We're hearing that it could be around Amos or the middle of August. We are working with Stratcom to ensure that this is, whatever decision by that point, and also leading up to that we can continue to articulate council's decision. Obviously, we'll continue to update our website. As mentioned earlier, as soon as we get the public release version of the E&Y financial impact or analysis, we will make sure that that is provided to council, as well as provide a briefing hopefully tomorrow. And then we do have some upcoming advocacy opportunities, including the AMO conference in August. So again, there's an opportunity where we can request delegations with the Minister of Municipal Affairs. So hopefully, if there is no decision, then this will be another opportunity for us to demonstrate what is City Council's or City of Brampton's position related to the regional government review. So at a high level, that's what I wanted to present. Again, the majority of the information is in the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Councillor Singh with a question?
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. I just had one quick question. You have, I see you just showed the online responses from April 29th to May 15th at 629 total responses. So I'm just trying to get clarification. When was this survey taken with 30,125 calls that were answered by individuals?
Are you speaking with the Main Street?
No, I'm talking about report 4.1-39. It says 94,500 people, 5 were randomly selected landlines and cell phone numbers with a Brampton address plus an additional 14 individuals. Out of the 94,519 calls, 30,000 were answered, and a total of 4,938 individuals joined the conversation. Okay, I think
that's the telephone town hall.
Got it. Okay, that's what I want to clarify. So we were actually calling people to ask them to actively participate.
Yeah, on April 27th, we hosted a telephone town hall.
Yep.
So those are just the statistics in terms of the number of calls that we made, the number of live people that we got. And I think during the call, we were upwards of about 5,000 participants who joined the call at some point during that hour telephone town hall.
So just to be clear, so during the town hall, we also called people to join the town hall.
Well, that's the way the telephone town hall, so we randomly selected a
No,
number of people to call again and it was a completely randomized
Yeah, and we
process.
randomized 94,000 people. Wow. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Lowell. We have 2 additions before we move on to the motion. And so the 2 additions we have on the list for deputations, Jermaine Chambers, a community member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, all protocol observed. So as a resident, I have had the chance to talk to thousands of people about this regional governance, and I have a few suggestions I wanted to make. I do believe that the region of Peel should stay together with a few minor adjustments that I would like to see. I believe many residents sometimes are not very clear on the direction that the region of Peel is taking on certain issues. And I believe, for example, if we have a direct election for the regional chair, that would give people an opportunity to present a platform to residents of Peel, and therefore more people would be aware of the various directions that the Beach of Peel is going. Because government, people normally make a decision on government based on their manifesto, based on their platform. So I think we should advocate for direct election of a regional chair. I also think that we need better representation by per capita population. Right now, as we know, all 11 members of Mississauga sits at the region of Peel, but if we had a per capita representation, at least Brampton would have another 2 members at the region. So I think that's something we should advocate for to ensure that we have better representation from Brampton. I think there is some merit in examining some more amalgamation of services. For example, I think Brampton Fire Service, which does an outstanding job, we could look to see if there would be additional value in having Brampton Fire Service become just like the Peel Regional Police Service, that we have a regional body, for example. And we saw that when Caledon had a recent fire, that Brampton came to their rescue and offered some assistance, as Caledon did not have some of the equipments that were needed to kind of manage that fire. So I think there might be some value in doing that. I also think, members of council, that as we look at this regional review, it would be important as well for us to take a look at our own city governance and how that impacts the region of Peel. So for example, now we have 6 members from Brampton who sits at the region. More than likely we should have probably 8 members. So therefore, instead of having, for example, 1 city councillor representing 2 wards, it could be that we have a city councillor to each ward than to have city council representing 2 wards, right? That would reduce the amount of time and the amount of residents that you have to cater to. Because I think as it is right now, each city councillor caters to approximately 120,000 residents. Many residents have complained sometimes of not getting adequate responses. And I know it's not because council members are inadequate, but are incompetent rather, it's because of the volume of work that you have for sure. All right? So I would really recommend that we look at reducing those wards from having 1 council 2 wards to 1 ward each. But if for some reason that we decide to keep the 2 wards, I'm trying to race here against time, I do believe that we need to look at the boundaries and how we join these wards together. A simple look, for example, we have wards 9 and 10. They follow numerically. They also follow in terms of geographical area. We have 7 and 8. We have 3 and 4. But over here we have 2 and 6. Something went wrong here, right? We have 1 and 5. I think something went wrong here. We should have 5 and 6, 1 and 2. And I do believe that that is something that we should look at to reassemble these boundaries so that the wards more closely align to the federal boundaries as well as the provincial boundaries. Because 9 and 10, 7 and 8, all the others, for example, wards 5, the entire ward 5 is in Brampton West. But for some reason, we tie Ward 5 with Ward 1. So I don't think, so in terms of working with the city councillors, working with regional and provincial counterparts, I think that should form a part of our review as well. And with my 1 minute I have left, I think there will be some disadvantages should we break up the region of Peel. For example, I think Caledon is our next door neighbor. They might have some challenges in keeping up with all their resources, and that might impact Brampton. If we have a city that is right on our doorsteps, that is not keeping up with their city, that might have an impact on us as well. Amalgamation, I think, might be a different challenge as well. If we look at the example of Toronto, to this day, you can see the disparities with Scarborough versus downtown Toronto versus Etobicoke in North York. It has not come together as one harmonious city. And I fear that if we amalgamate, the same thing might happen to Brampton, where Brampton becomes the back door for Mississauga and Caledon becomes the forgotten city. So I think amalgamation as well will not work. So I think with some minor adjustments to our government structure, we should look at keeping the region together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jermaine. I would note that today's discussion is not about ward boundaries. The province has not has not asked for our input there, but we've always asked for additional representation at the regional level. That's a long-standing request of the city of Brampton. Our next deputation is Sylvia Roberts.
So there's supposed. My name is Sylvia Roberts. There's a image attached to this delegation. So this deputation, I guess it is for tonight, is that in the event that the region is split, what I would like to see is that in the city's motion, it includes an option for Malton to have a plebiscite if it wants to join Brampton or not. Geographically, Malton is in the far corner of Mississauga. It's completely isolated from everything else. If you look at a number of regional services, it's effectively considered part of Malton, for example, for delivering police services. In terms of transit services, even though Mississauga favors having MyWay take care of all the services, Brampton has similar amounts of services to Malton for the industrial area bounded there. Much, if not most, of the workers are actually from Brampton. So this realignment would potentially be in Brampton's favor. My concern is that if Mississauga is split off from the region and it's decomposed, that it's effectively going to be treated like Rexdale is in Toronto. It's a poor working class community surrounded by industrial areas, highways, and completely neglected. Malton actually has substantial cultural ties to Brampton. If you look at the demographics, it's substantially similar. If you look at many of the people who live in Brampton, many people in Brampton at one point lived in Malton for many immigrants. It was the starting place, and then they moved to Brampton. There are people on council who would say that they're from Malton. It's when my family moved to Brampton in the 70s, there were not very many South Asians, so they went into Malton to get supplies that you just could not get in an overwhelmingly white city. I think that this would also be in Brampton's favor. If you look at this area, it's basically east of 410 and north of the 403. The industrial lands would substantially help balance Brampton's jobs ratio, and Mississauga is continuously whining that the airport doesn't pay them anything remotely close to what they totally owe Mississauga. So if Mississauga doesn't want it and you want the jobs, maybe you should consider that. I think Malton would be open to the idea because, well, if you want to get to downtown Mississauga from Malton, some of the buses actually just go into Toronto because it's basically impossible on the east side to do it in Brampton, and it can sometimes be faster to go through Brampton to get to Mississauga. That's my delegation.
Okay, thank you for your participation. Oh, sorry, Councillor Palacio has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with you with the ties to Malton, and there are a number of Brampton residents that have come from Malton, my mom being one of them, and then a number of members around this table as well. I say Mississauga kicks and screams. I know they complain a lot about the airport, but they would never give up Malton. I would always be in favor of giving up Malton, but then again, we have to give wards 9 and 10 to Vaughan. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Sylvia. Can I have a motion? First of all, I have a motion to receive Main Street's report. That was moved by Councillor Palacio, seconded by Councillor Williams. All those in favor? I have a motion to receive the report from Lo Ruben Vaughan and Joseph Porteri, moved by Councillor Vicente, seconded by Councillor Santos. All those in favor? Motion carries. I have a motion to receive the delegations from Jermaine Chambers, community member, and Sylvia Roberts. All those, and this was moved by Councillor Palacio, seconded by Councillor Williams. All those in favor? Motion carries. Now for the in-camera portion, would it be appropriate to do that portion now? Okay. I was just advising, getting the clerk's advice.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if there is a desire for council to go into closed session just to receive some information, council could go into closed session for the reason of security of the property of the municipality or local board, and the position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or behalf of the municipality or local board.
Yeah. So this will be a quick update in camera by the CEO in regards to negotiation. And so can I have a motion to go in camera? So we'll meet upstairs in
Sixth floor.
sixth floor in
5 minutes.
5 minutes, and then we'll be back down here afterwards. Session, we met in camera to discuss an item that relates to a negotiation, and we have nothing to report. Now we have a motion to put on the floor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Santos. And Councillor Santos suggested that all members of council also second it, and if there's a willingness, we can note it accordingly. Okay. And I can speak to this briefly. We have done our homework. There are some municipalities that took a regional governance position before consulting the public, before doing independent financial analysis, before doing legal analysis. The city of Brampton felt it was only appropriate to do our due diligence. The reality is we were elected under one of the promises was to regularly consult. And I think with this, on big decisions, it's important to make sure that the residents are engaged, that they participate, that their voice is heard. So not only did we have an in-person town hall, we had a teletown hall that had thousands participate. We've had online participation. And we've really tried to make sure that anyone that wanted to have input was given that opportunity. At the same time, we received an analysis from Deloitte that spoke strongly to the fact that it would cost more, the dissolution of the region would cost more for the residents of Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. Later this evening, we're going to have one from Ernst & Young that you'll see on the regional website later today. But we have done our homework, and that homework makes the choice easy. It brings clarity. By doing our due diligence, it brings clarity that if our focus is to protect our residents, to look at the cost associated with changes to regional governance, the continuation of the region appeal is what works best. And just like they realized in 1974 when former Premier Bill Davis created the region, in his wisdom, he realized that by sharing the cost of policing, water treatment, other regional services, that it saved homeowners. It took pressure off families in Peel Region. And here we are all these years later, and the same analysis that they did in 1974 appears to be true today, that the region appeal has merit when you look at the numbers. And this has now been looked over by two reputable international institutions, and it's important when we make decisions that they're made based on facts. And I believe the position the city of Brampton will hopefully take today is rooted on facts. The provincial government has said they want to look out for the taxpayers. Well, if that is their true motivation, then the continuation of the region appeal is in the best interest of taxpayers. And that's not the city of Brampton's position, it's the independent financial analysis. So having said that, we have a motion that is before us, and I know we have a few speakers on the board, so Councillor Dillon first, and then Councillor Singh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be brief. I think a lot of my colleagues have already made their comments, and I agree with much of what they said, but essentially we've done our due diligence. We did the responsible thing by collecting all the data. We did all the analysis, and we spoke to our residents beforehand before making the decision, and I think the numbers are clear. Amalgamation or dissolution will cost the taxpayers could cost the taxpayers up to $1.1 billion. So I just want to commend the leadership of our mayor and this council for taking the time to actually get solid numbers to take to our residents. And so I do believe Mississauga is still using outdated information from 2003 from the last I heard, and so hopefully the residents from Brampton and both Mississauga are able to, take a look at the information that's provided and encourage, especially Mississauga, to encourage their council to make the right decision.
Okay, Councillor Singh.
Thank you, and I also wanted to take this moment to thank staff for all their hard work. I know we were working on really tight deadlines. I am very supportive of this motion. It is consistent with our hard work, whether it's the 629 responses from the online survey, whether it's the Main Street survey results, which were, with a 95% confidence interval, and we looked at 2,018 adults. We saw 64% there want the status quo. In our online polls, it was 59%. And this position is consistent with what our residents want. And ultimately, when we were campaigning at the doors, we heard this over and over. The biggest issue our residents were facing was taxes. And I try to bring up buses, I try to bring up other issues, but it was always back to taxes. And I'm proud to have worked with this council to have delivered 0% increase for next year. Proud to have worked with staff. And ultimately, this council is one that will fight for the taxpayer. And I think this position is consistent with a theme of council, and so I'm supportive of this motion. Thank you very much.
Councillor Vicente.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the motion and for allowing every member of council to second this. This wasn't a question that we asked for. It was a question that was imposed on us by direction of the province and their regional review. And it's always been my personal position that the Region Appeal is an amazingly well-functioning organization. Everything that the Region Appeal does really is excellent and above par. Councillor Santos and I today had an amazing opportunity to tour our local public health department at their offices. And we have to say that, what we saw, the work that public health is doing to maintain the health and safety of all the residents of the Region Appeal is just incredible. And you think about it, if you were to split that up and provide for a public health department for the city of Brampton, provide for a public health department for the city of Mississauga, it's pretty simple. It's going to cost taxpayers more. Some services are best delivered at a regional level, and those services which are really best served by a local governing body at the city level are like planning or any of the decisions that we make here that closely affect and provide what the city looks like and what the experience is for residents is appropriately delivered at the city level. And so if you were to have 2 paramedic offices, you would pay more. If you were to have 2 waste and recycling collection agencies, it's going to cost you more. It's basic math, and we can add. And so I fully support the motion, and this clearly is the position of all the residents of the city of Brampton. They know what we know, is that keeping regional services and city services working together is the best option that saves the most and delivers the best service for all the people of this entire region. Thank you.
Councillor Santos.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. We took a very responsible.
Can you get her on?
There we go. We took a very responsible, research-based approach on data, and before making any decision, before voting tonight, that's what we did, active outreach with residents. And this was a truly collaborative effort, not just for council colleagues under the leadership of the mayor, but also with city staff and staff in general. That and certainly also for the residents of the city who engaged and participated online, on the telephone town halls, in the town hall meeting, shared their opinions on social media. We took an incredibly engaging and responsible approach in coming to this decision this evening. The City of Brampton should be incredibly proud of what we've done, and I just want to acknowledge the staff in particular for putting all of this together in such a short period of time.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Echo many of the comments by my colleagues. I guess just from a process, and I'm not sure if staff can comment. So we're advising the Ontario government, and I assume local MPPs will be also sent copies and advised accordingly and provided with the information regarding this motion.
Through the chair, that's correct. Lowell was just asking me whether or not we should include advising local MPPs of this information as part of the resolution. And I said we would do it anyway in due course. That's good business, but thank you for that, and we're happy to amend this if necessary to ensure that it happens, but we will definitely do that.
Yeah, and that was the question I had. I'm not sure if we needed an amendment or not, but I'll leave it in your hands. But I think the big, takeaway is we've had several studies. We've had the previous one by Deloitte. We have this one, and I'm sure the province will do theirs. And ultimately, it's about how we serve our residents and our taxpayers. So I thank you for all the work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What a difference 4 years make. 4 years ago, we were requesting the province give us equal representation, and now it feels like we're just trying to hang on to the representation that we have and keeping the region alive and keeping it, fiscally responsible for the taxpayers. And, I think at some point we need to dust off that motion we sent to the Liberal government last term and kind of resend it to say, we're still here. We're still asking for equal representation. We're not represented well at the region, and we have reports stating that. It's unfortunate. I had to throw that in there because we are talking about regional governance. I think we have done the responsible thing here, not take a stance until we had more of the factual numbers. And like many of my colleagues have said here tonight, that I think this is the most fiscal responsible solution that we see fit. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much through you, Mr. Mayor. Very good job to our staff. Thank you very much for the long hours you've put in working both here and at the region to make sure that these are done and that we're informed. The most important thing, I think, for us is that we are informed when we make big decisions. And this is a case where we've been relatively well informed for a very long time. And all I can say is that, we've got a wonderful city. We've got basically 650, 700,000 voices out there. And I think now that we've put forward, our decision on what we want to do and carry forward and remain as is, I think we need the 700,000 voices in the city to echo that. And to, if you have to, it's the MPPs who are going to be making this decision. So, I think that's where the voice of Brampton needs to start focusing their attention. Thanks.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I just want to echo many of what the councillors have, my fellow councillors have shared today. The people have spoken and spoken very clearly that, staying, keeping the region is the direction we need to be going. And, I just think that nobody ever works well or feels good living in limbo. And with the changes that we saw in Toronto, where the amalgamation and the results and even how people are still coping now, I just don't want to see that for our residents. And I think our residents deserve more. And they've been getting quite a bit and have been happy with the way the region has been working. The people that would be affected, job losses, reorganization costs, it would just be too much to bear for our residents. And so I'm very appreciative of all the work that you've done to make sure that we've reached out, heard the voices of our community, and been able to give us more than plenty enough information to help us make a very clear, confident decision. So thank you so much for all you've done, and I fully support the motion on the table. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Willens.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, I may be dating myself here, but I'm probably one of the only ones around here that remembers when Brampton became part of the region of Peel. My father was one of the first elected on to sit at the region as a regional councillor back in 1974. But I want to thank you, Mayor, for the hard work you initiated with staff and council for supporting this. It's important to remember that not only Brampton benefited, but Mississauga and Caledon benefited from the region of Peel. It's been a very, at times it's been struggling with our neighbors to the south, but it's been a good relationship, in my opinion, as far as the services for the residents in all three municipalities. So I think this is the right move, and hopefully the province will listen. So thanks to staff.
Just thank you through you, Chair, just a recorded vote standing, please.
Record a vote.
Recorded vote's been requested. All in favor of the motion on the screen, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Santos, Councillor Vicente, Councillor Willens, Councillor Paleshi, Councillor Bowman, Mayor Brown, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Williams, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Singh, and Councillor Dillon. Mr. Mayor, the motion carries unanimously 11-0.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion to receive the report from the CEO and the Government Relations. Moved by Councillor Bowman, second by Councillor Paleshi. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, now we're on to correspondence. There's no correspondence. Related business, there's no related business. Public question period. Now we can deal with item 7. This is where we invite members of the public to come forward to the podium and ask any questions about any decision made by council at today's meeting. So if you have a question that would be germane to the normal council meeting, we have this at all council meetings, but if you want to ask a question about today's decision, you're welcome to come forward. Please state your name and...
Jotvinder Sodhi. Thank you, Mayor Brown and the council members. It's a wise decision and unanimous, which is a congratulations to the entire team. They have unitedly made a good decision to keep the Peel region as is, though we know this is a provincial decision. So this is kind of just a political decision at this point, till we know what the province is leading towards. But having said that, we hear 1974, Mississauga wants to be separate from Brampton. This is going on for a long time, and while the Mississauga was prepared itself to be a self-sustained and city by having a diverse between industry, business, and growth and everything else, versus the Caledon has been protecting their land for a long time. Unfortunately, the Brampton was focused on building the houses, more and more houses, where the ratio of business and the houses is sky high. And we have a youngest generation here, youth, the age perspective wise, who are ready to workforce by having a double graduations, technical educations, and they're striving to look for a job, which Brampton could not provide to that level of their education. Either it's a technical education, or it's a financial degree, or it's an IT. So in order to do that, we are requesting our council to make a strong and sustainable plan with the aggressive decisions today, that what we happened in the past, we leave it behind. Moving forward, Brampton becomes a sustainable city if any decision comes forward. In order to do that, we humbly request to stop single dwelling houses immediately, and all the land designated or has been allotted to the housing.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. This is question period, so if you can phrase your comment in the form of a question, please. Thank you.
All it is to have more industry businesses. That way revenue comes in, so Brampton becomes more sustainable if that situation comes forward.
Okay.
Right? This is a humble request, and moving forward, we would like to hear more from the council and consultation and things which work for the taxpayers. Thank you very much.
I think it's more of a comment than a question, but thank you for your presence here, Jovinder. Any other questions? Seeing none, we're on to bylaws. Yes, confirming bylaw, moved by Councillor Santos, seconded by Councillor Vicente. The following bylaw before council at a special meeting on May 21st, 2019, be given the required number of readings, taken as read, and signed by the mayor and the city clerk, and the corporate seal affixed thereto, to confirm the proceedings of the special council meeting held on May 21st, 2019. Okay. All those in favor? Motion carries. Our last item of business is adjournment. Our next meeting is Wednesday, May 22nd. So if you haven't had enough of us, you get to see us again tomorrow morning, if you so wish, to join us here in these chambers at 9:30 a.m. and then again on Wednesday, June 5th at 9:30 a.m. I have a motion by Councillor Santos, seconded by Councillor Vicente to adjourn. But on behalf of Councillor Dillon, I just wanted to say, go Raptors, go. Hope everyone has a chance to watch the rest of the game. All those in favor of adjourning? Yes. Motion carries. You don't know what the thing is? No. I don't know.